Brunei is one of a few oil producers in Asia. It's a small country with a national population of about 320,000. But its national income per capita reaches $18,000, and the Bruneian nationals enjoy a high living standard equal to that of a developed country. Professor Shimizu, what are the conspicuous traits of the present Bruneian society? Please give us some examples in comparison with Southeast Asian countries.
Well, the official name of Brunei is a Sultanate of Brunei, Negara Brunei Darussalam, and Brunei is one of the Malay Islamic countries in Southeast Asia, which means that his history is quite long and has glorious Islamic traditions. The state ideology is Melayu Islam Raja, Malay Islamic monarchy. Although her territories are small, the population enjoys high level of living because of oil and gas revenues. However, it faces new challenges under the pressure to shift to post-petroleum society. At the same time, I would like to remind you that Brunei is one of the important members of ASEAN countries, and for Japan, Brunei has been one of the most important suppliers of natural gas and oil.
Brunei's social structure is based on oil production and natural gas. But the Bruneian government is trying to reform the present system, dependent on petroleum and natural gas, into another one, starting the first year of the 21st century, which is this year. What's the main background to this move, and what reform plans have been put forward so far?
Brunei's economy is characterized as heavy dependence on oil and natural gas revenue. About half of the GDP comes from the gas and oil sector, while about 90% of export revenue comes from this sector. Brunei may be able to depend upon the present export revenue of oil and natural gas for another 20 years, as new discoveries of reserves of gas and oil were reported in the 1990s. However, it is also true that there is a limit to the available resources of oil and gas in the future. Brunei cannot depend upon its oil and gas forever, as they will come to the end in the end. Except for a certain period of higher prices of oil, balance of trade as well as the balance of currency accounts have been deteriorating in the recent years, although they still remain in the black. Under the circumstances, a vision for the post-petroleum generation has to be presented to the people. At the same time, we observe the unemployed among the Malay youth even now. I notice among the ruling circles in Brunei a sort of rising consciousness of emergency in the rapid globalization in the surrounding world. How to adapt Brunei to the new circumstances is one of the imperatives now. Various proposals as blueprints for future Brunei have been put forward until now. One of them is the establishment of international financial centers in Brunei. However, Singapore and Labuan Island in Malaysia, just opposite Brunei, are existing competitors in the same field. In this connection, it is worth noticing an idea to establish an Islamic financial center in Brunei come to the fore recently.
Brunei is a multi-ethnic nation. 70% of its population is Malay, and the rest consists of Chinese, Indian, and foreign labor. Professor Shimizu, do you see any differences in response to the reform plans among these ethnic groups?
Yes. Until now, in Brunei, Malay population enjoyed ethnically as well as religiously privileged position because in Brunei, Malay identity and Islam are two of the pillars in the society. At the same time, we observe an intensified Islamization in the society. I hear one example of a Chinese non-Muslim who sends their children or brothers to madrasa, Islamic school attached to mosque or masjid, with the intention that the knowledge of Islam is important even for non-Muslims if one tries to live as a citizen of Brunei in the future.
Some experts point out there is a possibility that Brunei's oil deposit will be exhausted within 20 years or so. Professor Shimizu, what's the key for Brunei to succeed in departing from the dependence on petroleum and reform its social and economic structures? How do you visualize the future of Brunei after it succeeds in reforms?
There are various factors we have to take into account for the preconditions of transition from the present oil export economy to a post-petroleum economy for Brunei. One of the obstacles to be overcome is a lack of qualified personnel and business supporting services. Another one is a very weak status of the private sector. The public sector plays a predominantly big role in Brunei's economy. People have been accustomed to dependency on the state and, in general, refrained from taking positive initiatives in the private ventures. Besides the psychological elements, comparatively higher wages also obstructed private entrepreneurs from investing their money in new ventures. Recently, the government took new measures and increased credit to the private sector and introduced and increased credit to the consumers to support private sector. However, it takes time before the private sector plays a leading role or a major role in the Brunei economy. In order to have this realization, we have to concentrate on the formation or training of the new personnel which are adapted to the new private sector-oriented economy.
At present, most of Brunei's petroleum and natural gas are exported to Japan. Under such circumstances, what can Japan do for Brunei's social and economic reforms?
Well, Japan occupies, as I mentioned, by far the biggest share, namely 42% of the total export of Brunei, only followed by the United States, Korea, and Thailand. Therefore, Japan's import of natural gas and petroleum is indispensable elements in the economic developments of Brunei. The recent economic stagnation of Japan has had a negative impact on Brunei's economy. Brunei contributed to Japan's policy of regional diversification of oil suppliers. In this connection, Japan can contribute to the development of Brunei in the field of the human resources through technical assistance in the transformation of Brunei's economic structure attuned to post-petroleum era.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shimizu.
That was Professor Manabu Shimizu, interviewed by Kei Segawa about Brunei's recent challenge to change its social and economic systems.